G'day guys, welcome to today's video where we will be breaking down the highly anticipated game for the year, which is the Grand Final. And the participants are none other than the Cats and the Swans, as they will take each other on at the MCG. It's been 2 years since we've had a Grand Final at this ground, obviously due to COVID complications and whatnot. So it's nice to see that we will finally have a game, and the grandest one of them all, back where the home of football really is at, which is at the MCG. Before we get into this video, make sure you hit the like button if you enjoy this content, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you do not miss another video of mine, especially when the vlog video goes live. So make sure to not miss that one. Alright, so Geelong and the Swans, the Cats and Sydney, going head to head in the highly anticipated game of the year. Both of these sides coming into it with relatively hot form. Both are on big win streaks. I think Sydney had or has like an 8 to 9 game win streak, and Geelong have well over, I think it's like 13 or 14 games of a win streak. Correct me in the comments if you will, but both teams are going into this with absolutely cracking form. Both are probably very confident to get the job done and to be the one lifting the Premiership Cup at the end of it. So going into the video, these are the talking points that we're going to be kind of looking at throughout the video to kind of break it down once again what it is that we're going to be discussing. So the first things that we'll be looking at today is looking back at the week that was in the prelim week. What did the Cats and the Swans do to get the job done against their respective opponents? Obviously, the Cats against the Lions and the Swans against the Pies. Then we'll be looking at each team's strengths going into this final clash. So what are the teams really good at doing well, and what should there be main focuses of attention going into this game? Kind of just like playing to their strengths, if you will. Looking at key matchups, so certain like players or opposition that might either tag one another, play on one another, or just certain players in similar roles that will need to have a certain impact to kind of influence the game to a beneficial factor for their team. What do Geelong need to do or continue to do to beat the Swans? So what is it that we need to look at doing this week coming up to not just win certain quarters or win certain matchups or win certain whatever, but the ultimate goal of winning the match as a whole to be crowned the premiers of 2022. And then I've also got a little prediction margin at the end. First thing we want to look at, how did the Cats beat the Lions? What did the Cats do really well to influence the game in a way that was positive for them and to ultimately run out to a 71-point victory? Well, the 1%ers that I mentioned last week, the Lions, if you remember my video, if you have watched my video, or if you haven't, last week the Lions were really, really dominant with those 1%ers. I think they had 70 for the match against the Demons, and that was like one of their key points of them winning that game, despite their efficiency inside 50 for that match. Even though they kicked 14-8, I think it was something at that time. They were really good at like following up and going hard at the contest. In this game, you could see here by the numbers, Geelong like went about their average, maybe slightly above with the intensity of the finals, but Brisbane dipped right low, 37 1%ers. So their intensity towards the ball wasn't really as well intentful as Geelong's was, and I do think at a certain point, like halfway through the third, late in the third, whatever, the Brisbane team kind of dipped a bit in willingness for 1%ers as they probably realized this season was over. Obviously, like I said, you know, anything could have still happened at that point. Like, I've seen crazier things happen, but the game at that point was relatively under control. So that could have influenced the numbers as well. But you can see just for the match in general, like they were not only just well below Geelong's 1%ers with a margin difference of 11, but they were also quite well below their season average. So Brisbane not really playing really well or not being that desperate for the ball to kind of get that fist in, get that tap in, whatever it is to get that extra advantage. And then the efficiencies inside 50, as you can see just around here. Geelong going about just a bit above the average at 50.8, and Brisbane dipping quite well below, like 11.4%. That is a big, massive drop, and this is probably one of the key areas that Brisbane kind of really struggled in when the going got tough. When they did go inside their 50, as you can see over here, if you're kind of looking at the inside 50 numbers, they weren't really that effective with it. So they had, as you can see here with the inside 50s, less chances to score as it was. And then when they did have those chances, they didn't really capitalize that well. So that kind of led to the avalanche that was the demolition at the G that night. Disposal efficiency as well, Geelong were pretty good at, like I said, moving the ball and whatnot. Like if you watched my vlog video from last week when the Cats took on the Lions, you would have seen me talking about how our movement was really well. We were attacking with authority, and we were just really clean with it. Like we had a pretty clean game. We didn't make that many errors. Like there was a couple here and there, but nothing really of major impact, as you can obviously see by the scoreboard. And we were just playing with utmost confidence, and hence why we were able to kind of dominate the game overall, even in the turnover numbers as well, as you can see here. Brisbane committing like a bit below their average turnovers in all honesty, but we went well below our average. We were just overall just a lot more cleaner with the ball movement, with the desperation, and with the efficiency of scoring. Like, yes, we did kick 12 behinds, but when you're scoring like 30 times in a match compared to a team's 14, 9 times out of 10, you're probably winning that match. So, yeah, overall, like looking at these stats, like it's quite clear to see how and why we dominated that game. And we probably need to replicate the same thing if we are to be successful going into this week. But I'll get into that just a bit later into the video. Now we're going to be looking at the Swans and the Pies match. So how did the Swans beat the Pies? Well, it was a very close game, kind of a polar opposite, if you will, of the match prior, as this game was played on the Saturday with the Cats and the Lions played on the Friday. Close game, 1 point in the end. Sydney probably pretty lucky, all things considered, to win this game. That's not to say that Sydney didn't deserve to win this game. They were the better team for like, I'm going to say 95% of the match, but Collingwood were just kind of coming in close and closer, clawing their way into it and trying to snatch something out of nothing. And with a bit of luck here and there, the Swans managed to get it done. But how did the Swans beat them in the end? Well, looking at these numbers, the disposal efficiency was a lot higher than the Pies at 70 versus 66.3, and the efficiency inside 50 was also higher than the Pies, with the Pies actually not even cracking 40% efficiency, which is pretty poor, all things considered, when you're in a final, like a do-or-die final. So, again, the Swans were very clean with their movement as well, or just more cleaner than the Pies were. And when they did go inside 50, they scored more times than not, despite the fact that the difference was decided by a literal behind. So, take that as you will. And then the marks. So the Swans are already known as a pretty good marking team, as it is. As you can see by their 2022 average, they do average like just about almost 95 marks a game, which is absurd. So in this game, they did actually dip quite a bit, but they still had significantly more marks than the Pies did. And, when you mark the ball, that's time off the clock, that's time to set up an attack, that's possession of the ball that you have for at least a guaranteed X amount of time, which can frustrate a team on the defense because they're not really gaining control of that ball. So the Swans were really good at getting those marks inside the 50 as well, going above the average with 14 compared to Collingwood going below their average at 8, and contested marks as well. Sydney winning 16 contested marks compared to Collingwood breaking about the average at 10. So the Swans were marking really well, moving the ball pretty well, and overall, like, all things considered, were the better team for the most of it, but kind of got caught a bit late in the end there. But again, we'll discuss that later on in the video. This is how the Swans beat the Pies. So the strengths of each team going into the last game of the year. So what are the teams really good at doing? What are they well known for? And what are the stats and figures? Well, let's go through Geelong's things first. So Geelong, they're the number one team for inside 50 differential at 12.8. Keeping in mind that all these stats are based upon August 21st. So I believe that was at the conclusion of round 23, if I'm not mistaken. So do keep in mind that there might have been some stats that are slightly changed or slightly different, with both teams having already played 2 finals games prior to this upcoming match. So number one team for inside 50 differential at 12.8. So Geelong are very good at getting more inside 50s in general than the opposition team. That's a really good key stat to keep note of, meaning that we are getting the ball in the forward 50 more often than our opponents are. Should be considered to have the best whole forward duo in Hawkins and Cameron. And then we have players like Stengel who are in all-Australian form. So we have a really dangerous forward line, Jeremy Cameron, Tom Hawkins. Both of them finished, I believe, in the top 5 of the Coleman medal. And look, to be honest, Cameron probably could have won the Coleman medal if he played in the last game of the year, but obviously due to some hamstring issues, I believe, if I remember it was, sat out in the last game of the year as it didn't really matter if he played or not, because we already sealed top of the ladder at that point. Percentage wasn't really a factor, and it's not like we were playing a team that if we beat them could have dictated where maybe they finished on the ladder or where someone else finishes on the ladder to maybe give us an easier run at finals or something like that. So it wasn't necessarily that important of a game, so therefore Jeremy Cameron kind of sat that one out. But yeah, we have the best tall forward duo line at the moment in Hawkins and Cameron, and we have really dangerous smalls and your Stengels, your Closes, your Gryans, and your Gary Rowans. So we have a really dangerous forward line, and when you have 2 of the best or better tall forwards in the comp, that's a lot for a defense to handle, and this will be definitely a strength that we need to utilize with the fact that we are a very good inside forward 50 team. We're the number 1 ranked 4th quarter win rate team as of August once again. So we are considered the best team when it comes to winning the quarter in the 4th quarter. So what does that necessarily mean? So if, Geelong was to score 4 goals won in the last quarter compared to another team's 2 goals in the last quarter, Geelong have won that quarter. So we are rated the number 1 team in the 4th quarter to win that quarter, which is really, really nice knowing going into it that if the game is close, we can put on a lot of pressure to try and pinch it up and seal the victory in our favour. We are actually ranked number 1 at scores from turnover differential at 24.5 and number 3 for scores against per inside 50, so at 39.7%. So what that basically means is, in the heat of the battle, the opposition turns the ball over, we regain possession, we move forward, we get a score out of it. So a goal or behind, still regardless, we're putting a score on our scoreboard, which then makes the opposition defense worried about, well, if they make a mistake again and turn it over, they're probably going to score at us again. So we're at plus 24.5, and we're ranked number 3 for scores against per inside 50. So every time the opposition team gets the ball inside their forward 50, we most of the time defend pretty well and don't allow the opposition to score at all. So again, when the game is tight and we need to have a bit of defense, it's nice to know that we can do a pretty good job at making sure that the opposition isn't really punishing us when they do get the ball inside our defensive 50. Now looking at the Sydney stats, so what are their strengths that they'll probably focus on that we probably need to keep in touch with? So they're the number 1 rated pressure team in the comp. They are a very, very, very elite team when it comes to pressure. Last week they played against Collingwood, who are the number 2 rated pressure side in the comp, and I believe according to the AFL pressure meter, they had broken over 200. They are the number 1 rated team in pressure. So with this match being a grand final where it is do or die, if someone gets hurt kind of thing, you're trying to win it all. the pressure will be right up from Sydney. And do not be surprised if from the first bounce, Sydney come in with absolute aggression of pressure, and we probably need to start absorbing that very quickly. Sydney have a strong second half performance. They are ranked first and second in the third and fourth quarter win rates respectively. So, it could be a simple case of if we're only up by like a goal or something at half time, and we kind of look like we're not necessarily running out of steam, but we kind of look a bit shaky holding on to that lead, we could be exposed a bit, as we are playing the team that is ranked number 1 in third quarter win rates and second in fourth quarter win rates, with obviously them being behind us in fourth quarter win rates. They have a really strong second half, so we would need to make sure that we get on top of that. But yeah, Sydney, very strong second half performing team. They're ranked third for tackle differentials at plus 4.6 and rated third for scores from turnovers at 17.5 plus, according to champion data. And they have a lot of speed in their midfields. They have a lot of players that are very quick with the ball, are very efficient at moving it across the ground and getting it to their dangerous attacking patterns. So when you have a team that is as quick as they are in the midfield, they can score pretty well from turnovers and apply a lot more tackles. That could be a recipe for disaster for Geelong. So they need to make sure that on those center bounce plays that we shift our players in the zone very quickly to make sure that they're not getting an over-the-top quick score with their pace of their midfield. So the key matchups going into this week. So what are some of the matchups that I wanted to highlight, that I want everyone to kind of focus in on a bit? What are the things that are needed for attention to detail? So we got the Dangerfield and Mills matchup. So obviously these two up here. So last time, which was in round 2, which I know was a while back, both teams were quite different and both teams weren't probably as match fit and fine-tuned as they are now, obviously. But last time, Mills did go to Danger and kept him relatively quiet. Danger didn't really have that great of a game, and Mills did his job, and I think he got like close to 30 possessions that game. I can't remember, but I know he did really well that game and kind of shut Danger out. So, it's a question of, does Mills go to Danger again? Danger is coming off a fantastic game against the Lions, so do not be surprised if Mills goes straight to Danger here. We've also got Tom versus Tom, so Hawkins and McCartan. This will be another interesting battle going into it. Hawkins coming off a relatively pretty good game, kicking a few goals himself despite some, early on errors in front of goal with missing like 2 or 3 in a row or whatever it was, like from set shots. But yeah, Hawkins coming off a pretty good game, so, McCartan will probably have to keep a close eye on him. Want Hawkins to kick his few and kind of get himself into the match. So this will be a matchup where Hawkins really needs to make sure that he's winning his one-on-ones. He's kind of going one man out. He's applying like his own pressure to win the ball, and obviously converting when he does get the chances to slot the goals. Another very interesting matchup that we've got for us coming this week will be the Sam DeConning and Buddy Lance Franklin matchup. Very interesting tale, this one. You've got Sam DeConning, who, young kid, up-and-comer, has started out this year, obviously played his debut this year as well. Going into this year, there wasn't really much or any talk on this kid at all, and now going into this grand final week, he is seen as a, legitimate full-time back defender, and will probably, hopefully, give Buddy quite a lot of trouble. Assignment, rather, that Buddy will probably have to keep in mind, because he probably will take into factor that this kid is in a bit of hot form at the moment as a defender. Hopefully DK can keep Buddy out of it, keep him nice and quiet, and keeps him to a goal, if that. So we'll see how that matchup pans out. That should be a very interesting one to watch unfold. Then we got Guthrie and Parker. Cam Guthrie, Luke Parker matchup. This one, I don't think they're going to be necessarily one-on-one tagging each other or anything like that. But these are two players that play similar roles or similar positions that both need to have big games to have big influences on the match. So it's going to really come down to, who can win those key moments in, 50-50 balls, loose get-ups, contested pickups, uncontested pickups, and who could just cause the biggest damage in the game. And I feel like the match could potentially be decided by one of these two players. So it's going to be another interesting matchup to kind of see who rises to the occasion when called upon. And the last matchup to look at would be the Cameron versus Fox matchup. So again, Cameron being, all Australian form, going up against Fox, who will most likely probably line up against him on the day. Obviously, Cameron needs to make sure that he kind of gets loose off the chain, kind of comes off it, and really just gets himself open and gives himself the access to score the goals when needed to put on that scoreboard pressure that we try to heavily emphasize here, because scoreboard pressure ultimately wins games, as the scoreline at the end of the game ultimately wins you the game. What did Geelong need to do or continue to do to ultimately beat the Swans? So what is it that we need to focus on, or something that we need to have as our plan of attack to win this match? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to handle that heat or the pressure early from the Swans and get a few goals in that first quarter to make them chase the game. So as I said before, Sydney are probably going to try and come out of the gates running, really get us uncomfortable, get us on our edge of the seats, moments after the first bounce. We need to just kind of absorb that, get the ball moving, get it flowing, get it in our forward line, kick a few goals, and make them chase the game out. Because if they have to chase the game for the rest of the match, when it comes to crunch time going into the fourth quarter, they're probably going to be a lot more tired than we are, and we can just kind of run away with the game at that point. So handle the heat pressure early, get a few goals, make them chase the game. We also need to try and expose the Swans' late game defense with their back six, with quick bursts from our smalls to score, so like our Stangles, our Rowans, our Myers, our Closes, etc. Because if you watched the Swans and Pies game, or if you watched highlights of the last quarter, or whatever the case scenario, the Swans got exposed a little bit in their back six there, and it was mainly due to the smalls of the Pies attack, getting the goals here and there, sneaking it in here and there, and kind of making the Swans sweat a little bit in that regard. And like I said, honestly, if that game had gone for another minute or two, Collingwood might have won that match. You never know. Again, I'm not saying that the Swans weren't overall the better team, but when crunch time came to crunch time, they could have lost that game. So we need to make sure that, when it gets late into the game, all the players are starting to fatigue a little bit and whatnot, that our smalls are there ready to burst onto the scene and score those goals, which then could obviously pull certain defenders off our big tolls, and then that's when we can get players like Cameron, players like Hawkins, presenting themselves and maybe kicking a few clutch ones to seal it out. We also need to apply pressure ourselves to force turnovers for more scoring opportunities. As you can see here, that we are ranked number 1, as I mentioned in the previous slide. We're ranked number 1 at scores from turnover differential with plus 24.5. So we need to use that factor into our favor to make sure that the pressure is applied, so when they do ultimately spill the ball or becomes 50-50 and whatnot, that we can use what we are considered pretty strong at doing, which is scoring from those turnovers, which then creates that pressure, which then creates them running back to defend, which then creates them having to chase the game constantly, and kind of going back to my first point of making them chase the game. They become tired, we can run away with the game. And the big emphasis point, it's pretty blunt, all things considered, but if the game is tight, have the hunger and desire to win. I was so disappointed, and I know, 2020, that's 2 years ago and whatnot, and COVID had big implications on that year, but I was so disappointed when at halftime, we were up a half away from winning a flag in 2020, and the game just kind of ran away from us. It was almost like the players didn't necessarily give up, but they weren't willing to exert themselves to try and chase the game to get back into it. They just let Richmond get this momentum and just burst with it. Now, I know A lot of us probably don't really count that year as a year, due to certain factors and whatnot. And I know people say, you know, it's the year of the asterisks with the flag. But the matter of the fact is that there was a flag to be won in 2020 and we didn't capitalize on it after halftime. So if the game is tight, if the game's in the balance, like we're still in it, like, you know, we're down by 1 or 2 or we're up by 1 or 2 and the teams are kind of going head to head to really try and seal that game out, have the hunger and desire to win. It is hard to win a flag. There is no guarantee that we will be back here next year, next 2 years, next 5 years, next 10 years, next 20 or 30 years. There's no guarantee. We could be close. Definitely we could be very close in a few of those years, you know, post 22. But there's no guarantee that we could be back here with this opportunity. So if the game is tight and it's there to be won, have the hunger and desire to win. Simple as that. And obviously, with bias being fully involved into this, I do think at the end of the day, I think the Cats can win it by 22 points. I think we should be able to control this game for the most part. There will be times where Sydney will be coming in, probably lead for a bit and put on a bit of pressure. But I think come the fourth quarter, we should be able to kick away a little bit and probably win this game in fairly comfortable conditions. I think the Cats will win this one by 22 points. Thank you for watching today's video. If you did enjoy it, make sure once again you leave a like if you did enjoy this content, subscribe if you are new, and hit the notification bell so you do not miss another video of mine, especially when the Grand Final vlog drops. Thank you for watching. I appreciate the support for the video and videos prior, and I will see you for that Grand Final vlog. Go Cats.